Welcome to our seminar where we are looking at the role of digital platforms to support youth involvement and engagement in democracy and local decision making. My name is Tamsin Rose and I have the great pleasure to be your moderator for this session. Just a couple of simple rules to make sure that our interactions this afternoon are as useful and constructive as they can be. You can hear that I'm speaking slowly and clearly. That's because we have 3 working languages in this seminar, and I'll explain to you how they work. But first of all, let's look at how to use our Zoom etiquette. Of course, when you're not speaking, your microphones, please, should be on mute. If you are speaking, you need to have your video on because this is extremely helpful for the interpreters to see who's speaking and how they're speaking. We want you to be part of the conversation. So please ask us a question or write a comment at any time in the chat. It will be viewed. We have a very tight program today and not a lot of time for Q&A, but everything that you submit to us will be taken into account and will be seen. If you would like to speak, you can use the raise hand button. You can see a picture of it on screen and you're probably used to finding it in your Zoom spaces now. In terms of the translation, we are using English, Latvian and Russian. And this was new for me, so it may also be new for you. How do you find your way around it? Well, on the bottom of your screen, you will see, and they've shown it to you on the screen, a small button that looks like a globe. And there you can choose the language that you would like to listen to. If you hear additional noise, you need to mute original audio. So this is how it's going to work. You can react at any time. We enjoy seeing your messages. And if this is a session about democracy, obviously that's because we want to hear from you. So these are the basic rules that will allow our interactions over Zoom to work effectively. And we're also going to be using Slido as a tool for interactions, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let me just show you the program for the next hour and a half so you understand what we're going to do. We'll hear first of all from Marlène Simeon, the director of PLATFORMA, and then we'll have a lightning talk from Katarzina Smetek from Poland, who's going to share her experience of youth advocacy and political change. And then we're going to have 2 platforms presented who talk about how they engage with young people and bring their voices into decision making. Then we're going to be asking the question, how has COVID-19 accelerated the transfer to digitalization? And we're going to be hearing the specific example from Slovenia of online learning. Then we're going to have 2 rounds of exchanges with some panels. And the first one is asking, how has digitization affected the way that cities engage with their citizens? Has it changed the nature of the relationship? And the second round is going to be asking, how can these new forms of e-governance and participation bring in young people whose voices are traditionally not heard, but who are supposed to be the change makers of the future? So how can digital make that happen? And then we're going to have an audience exchange with you. We've got about 15 minutes to have a conversation, and we're going to try and focus on concrete recommendations about how we could, from this session, explore what could be done in the local government area to involve young people and use new digital tools so that we are building a democracy fit for the kind of digital age that we're living in. So that's going to be our time together, and we'll be finishing just after 2:30. So thank you for that. Let's start now by asking you a few questions. If you take a photo of that QR code with your phone, it will open Slido. If not, you can go on the website slido.com, and you need to put in a code, a hashtag, which is EaP Local, all in one. And we're going to ask you 3 questions on Slido. The first question, once you've arrived on the site, we would just want to find out how you're doing. In one word, describe your month so far. Now, I appreciate we're only at the beginning of November, but it's been a febrile time in world politics, the pandemic, lots of challenging situations. So how are you doing? In one word, describe your month so far, and we will use that to build an interactive word cloud. So we're just getting a sense of how you are at the moment. So I'm going to leave you an opportunity to go to slido.com. And when you're there, we're going to be asking you this question. In one word, how would you describe your month? How has November been for you? We're living in very turbulent times. Yep, 2020 has been a year like no other. Busy, intensing, disaster. Yeah, hopeful. I hope so. So. Fair. Zoom, yes. Whose month hasn't been full of Zoom? Not least this event. Yes. Active. Isolated. That's hard. When we're all stuck behind a screen, this is a very common theme. And in fact, there's been a big rise in problems of loneliness and mental health and isolation. So hopefully you'll feel more connected. Revolutionary, great. Digital, hopeful. Stressful, yes. I think this is the year that will go down in everyone's life as being transformational, a huge change. Active. Busy is coming through very strongly in the center of our picture as the key word that's coming forward. Zoom and Zooming, yes. Or any other platform that you've been on. So far, we've only had 21 answers, and I know that we've got over 70 people on the call, so I'll give it a few more seconds to see what else people want to share. And in theory, I think the system should be able to cope with a word in another language. So feel free to share what your month has been like so far. And if we talk about young people, you know, this is the COVID generation. For the last year, their education, their professional lives have been disrupted, and the World Bank says that we're about to head into an economic recession, the likes of which we have not seen for over 100 years. So for the generation of young people thinking about their futures, this is clearly going to have an impact. Unpredictable. It's long. It's been a long month so far. Yes, wild, a disaster, sad, a tragedy. I'm starting to get a real picture of how life has been for people in the last 2 weeks. It's obviously not been easy. There's been some quite intense issues coming forward. Chlopotnoje delcia, if I can understand, if I can read the Cyrillic. Okay. Oh, hard. Okay. We're at 27. Let's make it to 30 responses before we close this poll. And this was just to demonstrate both how digital platforms can bring us together and make us connect as human beings rather than as officials behind screens. So we just wanted to ask you a personal question here. How has your month been, to get a sense of, you know, everyone's mindset as we started this? Challenge and challenging coming through. Yes, exhausting. Lonely and busy. Well, I'm very much hoping that at the end of this seminar, you will feel more connected, a little more optimistic, a bit more inspired, and hopefully you will have found some interesting ideas to go forward. Okay, let's close this poll now, and let's move to another interactive session that we want to do. And the next thing we're asking is, how many hours a day do you spend behind a screen? Now, remember when I asked you how your month was, there was Zoom and Zooming and digital, and I imagine that we're spending a lot more time behind a screen than we did before. But how much more? Is there anyone in the audience who's spending less than 4 hours behind a screen? Or are most people spending 8 hours or 11 hours or more? And remember all the messages that we okay, we need to see if we can activate this poll, because it seems like nobody can vote. That's it. That's better. There we go. Unsurprising to see how much time we're spending on the screen. And again, if you think about all the messages that we had on mental health, about how difficult and unhelpful it is for our brains to be behind a screen. It makes it harder to sleep because the blue light affects our brain. Now look at see what's happening. How much time is being spent on the screen? Almost 40% of the people are spending 8 to 10 hours a day behind a screen. So no wonder when we asked you how your month had been so far, it was so challenging. Okay, let's close this poll now. Thank you. And the third question we wanted to ask is, as a result of COVID, have you started to use new digital tools? Has it opened up a new environment, maybe new opportunities to collaborate? Have you moved beyond the normal email tools to try some of the other options? And obviously we're all using Zoom, and I don't know how many people, I personally never used Zoom before the COVID and the pandemic. So yes, 100% of the people who've answered have said they've had to upskill and learn new digital tools, which is both a challenge and offers us new opportunities. Okay, thank you. Let's close that poll now. So we put the Slido up for two reasons. Number one, to give us a chance to interact with you and help you feel engaged in this. And secondly, we just wanted to get a sense of how you were doing and how your lives have changed and the extent to which everyone's lives has changed. So now that we've had some interaction on Slido, I'm delighted to pass the floor to our first speaker, Marlène Simeon, the director of PLATFORMA. Marlène.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we became specialists of Zoom and Slido, so well done, colleagues. I'm the director of PLATFORMA. It's a pleasure to meet you for this second edition of the EU Eastern Partnership Local Leaders Forum. Last year, we were all together in Lithuania celebrating the 10 years anniversary of the Eastern Partnership. And we focused on the 20 deliverables, on the SDGs. We had a lot of networking, and it was a great moment as well. But it's my pleasure today to introduce this virtual session on upgrading local democracy through technology. Is politics more responsive to citizens in the digital era? So the focus of today is really relevant, as we could see, considering the strong impact that COVID-19 pandemic has had both on citizens, on youth, on digitalization, on local democracy. We even saw several elections that took place during the lockdown at national but also local levels. New innovative platforms like Zoom that we are using today allow us to stay connected. Even if, to be honest, I would have, of course, preferred seeing you all in person in Riga. I'm delighted that these topics are being raised actually in the context of the EU Eastern Partnership Forum. Both the EU and the Eastern Partnership share these issues, and by working together, they can help each other to find solutions that are efficient and innovative in municipalities and regions. PLATFORMA is a pan-European coalition of local and regional governments and their representative associations active in development cooperation. And we have been working with Eastern Partnership associations of local and regional governments since 2002 through the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, CEMR, our lead partner. So since 2015, CEMR PLATFORMA has developed an Eastern Partnership program. And we aim at strengthening local and regional governance and developing capacity building of national associations of local authorities, and in particular in Georgia, the Republic of Moldova, and in Ukraine. We fully support now the importance given to the Eastern Partnership by the EU. We are convinced that more engagement with people at local level, as stated in the new joint communication on the post-2020 strategy for the EU Eastern Partnership, as well as the multi-level approach that the EU Council conclusions promote, will be crucial to strengthen the relationship between the EU and the Eastern Partnership. So with this in mind, working specifically on the role of youth engagement, together with young politicians directly, is essential to make sure that our cooperation will sustain also for future generations to come. The time of constantly developing technologies and rapidly changing political, social, and economic realities, both in Europe and in the Eastern Partnership, young people are one of the major resources in Europe and beyond to make a positive and long-lasting change in their home communities. It's also in times of distress like we are facing right now, when their leadership begins to take on an increased significance. They have proved time and time again that they have an incomparable drive, passion, and flexibility to create positive change. They contribute to civic life and community well-being. Young people represent this generation of leaders able to rebuild the trust that is vital to democracies, and they are key to shape solutions for a sustainable future. They are willing to provide effective responses to multiple complex social and global challenges, such as inclusion, social rights, climate change, education, gender equality, and many more topics. However, addressing such challenges requires effective youth policies, led by politicians from all levels of governance that are ready to engage with young people on all key priority issues. And for this to take place effectively, they need a space to fully participate in society. Digitalization, which will be raised today, is indeed an effective means of involving them. But it should also start first with political will. Politicians should give them a seat at the table and engage with them in a process that values their experiences and aspirations, but also helps them identify their needs and solutions to any specific challenges they may face. They need to be recognized as agents of change, active partners to build better forwards and more inclusively after the crisis. At the present and the future of our societies, they can support decision-making in local authorities, and therefore they need to be involved. So to wrap up my introduction, the purpose of this session is to create conditions for learning and understand the role of youth and the implications of technology to upgrade democracy at the local and regional levels. Digitalization and active citizenship topic are also priority areas in the EU Eastern Partnership future. So this session will be an excellent opportunity to understand how the local politicians from the EU and the Eastern Partnership countries face the same challenges. And based on today's discussion, we will draft a set of recommendations for the next EU Eastern Partnership Summit. So I wish you all a fruitful debate with such a great program and amazing speakers and moderation. It can only go well. So good luck for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marlène. So I would like to now pass the floor to our what we're calling the lightning speaker for a lightning talk, Katarzyna Smetek, the president of the Polish Youth Climate Council at the Ministry of Climate in Warsaw, Poland. Now, we've spent a year watching young people march on the streets. So there's no question that youth are active and engaged and have huge ambitions on the climate. And that can only happen if they can be heard inside political processes and help to shift our policies towards the climate. So Katarzyna, would you like to share with us what you want to say on this issue?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the organizers. And thank you also, Marlène, for highlighting how crucial the young people are in today's decision making. And thank you so much for organizing this session on youth, but also about youth and also with youth, because I will come back to it later on in my speech. But very often such sessions are organized without young people, but they are regarding young people, which is often a problem that we don't realize it is. But thank you so much, because I also agree that young people are one of the most crucial groups in today's society. They are not only important today, but they are actually citizens of tomorrow. So it depends fully on us now how we educate young people how we let them grow in democratic societies, and how we teach them to be actually aware and active, because we often forget that young people are tomorrow's lawyers, politicians, local authorities, representatives of international organizations. We tend to forget about that, but if we tend to forget about it, then they will never develop properly. So I would like to stress out some things. First of all, potential of young people is unlimited, and we often undermine it by their age. So we think, okay, this person is only 15, 16, this person cannot be an expert in a given field. It is, of course, a huge mistake, because when a person is active in a given sphere, probably he or she is already an expert. We can see it, for example, in case of technology, which is today's topic. Young people are, first of all, agents of change. They are a source of innovation, energy, and new perspective. Why is that? Of course, because access to new information and news is much bigger than it used to be when, for example, my parents were young. They couldn't access information on daily basis as I do now. They couldn't actually browse something on the internet. They had to go to libraries and look throughout the books. Now, young people don't really think about it. We just open one of the internet searches, and then it's very, very easy. And I think young people often forget how much they depend on technology, because we young people use technology, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, everything on daily basis. But does young people actually perceive technology as a means to upgrade democracy? We don't think about it this way, because for young people, internet is most importantly, for example, for school, for education, for games, for social interactions. But is it also for contacting my local representatives? Is it for contacting my mayor or contacting my city council? Of course, if we don't educate young people about it, it will never be, because young people, it is not about young people not knowing, it's not about young people not wanting to take part in these processes. It is about young people not being aware they can. They are actually afraid of reaching out. They don't know how to interact with, for example, city council. Should they send the email to the president of the city council, or should they send the email directly to the mayor? Of course, we as people who are, let's say, active in this given field, we may be aware of that, but young people have no idea, because they are not educated about that in school. So we should actually start with showing young people what means we already have. So showing young people that there is a huge sphere of technology used in, for example, local authorities, bodies that can help us. So young people don't really have to go to the city council building to get the IDs. They can just send the documents, and they can get it a few days later with a given ID card. They don't really have to, I don't know, get their confirmation of birthplace. They can just send the ID, ID documents. They can send other papers, and they can get it by email. They don't have to sign some documents at the building. They can actually do it with e-signature. There are so many things that we can use and young people can use, which we often forget about that. On the other hand, I know that there are so many local authorities present here today with us. So how can we make it from the other side? Very often we want to include young people in decision making, but we forget how to reach out to them. So there are so many possibilities. Also right now in the era of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and so many other platforms, we can organize consultations. So we can hold dialogues online to learn about their point of view. We can actually show them that young people should be a part of solution, because they are this agent of change. So without them, this change won't really happen. But it's also about challenges. Of course, we may say that it's so easy to include young people, organize online consultations, send your documents by email, but we forget that so many people, young people, don't have access to internet, they don't have access to computer, they don't have basic technology tools to do it. So what we can actually do, and what we can, how we can think about young people being active in this field. Also, maybe it's about local authorities to actually provide young people with computers, with technological tools, if they know that such needs are required. But why it's so important, well, and why it's so important for me to be included at the political table and be taken part and take part in the discussions and decision-making processes. First of all, youth, so young people under the age of 25, makes up 18% of Warsaw's population. With children, it's almost 40%, which means that leaving young people behind means leaving behind almost half of today's society. It is, of course, a huge mistake. We are leaving behind a population that should follow the change, as Tamsin and Marlène said, of tomorrow, and should actually represent us in the future. But also we should remember that young people is not only the generation of tomorrow, but it's also a part of the solution. So we often tend, again, to forget that young people is not a separate group. It is a complementary group to all the other groups that are present in society. So we shouldn't actually organize separate consultations for young people, for women, and for migrants or indigenous people. We have to remember that young people are also migrants, young people are also women, and they are also indigenous people. So it's all about intersectionality and its meaning in today's world. But I also think that inclusiveness and this multi-generational dialogue is actually the only solution to the local as well as global challenges that we face today. But of course, it's much easier to say than to do something. But I may perceive my experience as example that it's possible to be done. So I would like to present what you should do in order to actually succeed in some field, which is of course not without challenges that I'll come back to later. But first of all, we have to be active, we have to be engaged, and we have to be seen. It is not about active on your table on computer and, for example, browse throughout the internet and learn everything that you can. Of course, it's about that as well, but you should actually make local authorities and national decision makers aware that you are active and you are aware and you are ready to be an expert in a given field. Then you, of course, have to follow the latest information and news. You have to keep learning all the time, and you should remember not to give up when the minor challenges appear. So it's not about thinking, okay, I know everything now, I'm an expert, I'm 21 and I can be the president of Poland. Of course I can, because I have to learn so much and I have to explore my knowledge. It's also about not giving up when you face criticism. Criticism is very important for you to grow, but actually you have to fight hate. You shouldn't read comments that may affect you, but you should make sure that this false information is not circulating throughout the internet. And this Youth Climate Council is the example of all these things that I just said. So I reached out a year ago to
Katarzyna.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we're running very short of time and you've gone over the 5 minutes. Could I ask you to just give us the last 2 messages you wanted to give us, and then we can move on. You'll still have a chance to come in later. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this heads up. So I will come back later to Youth Climate Council, but I will just focus on challenges now. Of course, there are so many challenges with technology and young people in democratic processes. First of all, tokenization. So young people are at the table only to make sure that young people are present. They are not meaningfully participating in a given discussions. So that's the first thing we should include, as for example, this session, young people as a meaningful participants. We should remember that young people can face different fears. They can be scared in a room full of very experienced diplomats and experts, which is of course possible, and we should bear it in mind. We also have to remember that young people are not only focusing on this field, they are not only being a part of this political discussion, but they are also going to schools, they are part of the university, university, they actually still learn, and they have to balance the time between being active in political sphere and also on academic side. And very last thing is that you can be an expert despite your age or experience. If you are interested in the field and you keep learning, you can actually achieve a very huge things. Thank you so much, and thank you for the heads up with the time. And then
thank you. No problem. I mean, you're very passionate and very clear about the value that young people have, both as of themselves, but also as future actors, future large proportion of the society, etc. So really helpful to have that. We're now going to move from your messages about, how to involve young people in a meaningful way into exploring two specific platforms that are a tool that allow this engagement. So we have Wietse van Ransbeeck, the co-founder and CEO of something called CitizenLab and Digital Democracy, and we have Mikalai Kvantaliani, who is a steering committee member and a representative of the association New Group, and is based in Belarus, a country which is right in the middle of deciding its future through democracy, and digital tools have played a big role. So I'll start by Wietse. Tell me about your platform and how you think it enhances the role of youth in policymaking.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for the invite. So my name is Wietse van Ransbeeck. I'm the founder and CEO of CitizenLab, which is a digital platform for online citizen engagement. So we make it easy for, of course, not only young people, but for citizens to have a direct say in local policymaking. We work today with over 200 cities, still mainly in, I would say, Western Europe, also in the United States. And we help them actually bringing their policies online and giving citizens a say in those policies. It works in two different ways. On the one hand, citizens, they can participate within the projects of their local authorities. So it could be about a mobility plan, it can be about repurposing public space, or it can be about, to just give you one example, what the capital of Greenland did last month was they organized a deliberation, a debate about whether the statue of a Danish missionary from the 16th century, whether they should be removed from public space, yes or no. So that was, of course, in the light of Black Lives Matter. And then citizens, they have a debate, a constructive debate, and they exchange on pro and con arguments. And in the end, they can vote on whether they should be removed, yes or no. So in this case, they decided, by the way, to preserve and to keep the statue in the public space. But so that is the top-down approach. But then you also have, and that's very important, the bottom-up approach. So you also have, as a citizen, as a youngster, the option to put your own proposal on the table. And that is really important because we citizens and young people should also be able to influence the political agenda, not only participate on what's already on the agenda, but have an impact on what should be on the agenda. So that is what we do at CitizenLab, lowering the barrier for people to participate. It all started actually 5 years ago from my personal story, as back then a 20-year-old young person. I wanted to make a change in my neighborhood. I was politically involved, but I couldn't really find a way to easily make my voice heard. And that's why we started this digital platform, because young people and millennials, as engaged as they are, they don't want to go to a town hall meeting at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night and just sit there and watch officials speak and discuss. They want to be part of the conversation. And that would also be a call that I want to share here with all policymakers here on board, is that COVID-19 is a huge opportunity for you to engage the youth, because you will be forced to actually bring your activities, your town hall meetings, your decision making, you will be forced to bring it online to make it more transparent. So grab that opportunity and actually use it as an opportunity to get younger people involved via things such as these Zoom calls, via digital platforms. And maybe just to conclude, there's something that we have done at CitizenLab in the light of the global health crisis. We have, together with those 200 cities, co-created a tool for online workshops, making it easy for them to actually bring those meetings online and make them also more interactive. So that it's not just the official speaking and the citizens listening, but that you can actually have an interactive debate, ask questions, have also breakout rooms and yeah, small group discussions. So that would be definitely my message for you policymakers: grab this opportunity and make use of it to involve the youth.
Thank you, Wietse. Let me turn now to Mikalai, because you know, Belarus is a country where we're actually right on the front line of the dialogue or not between citizens and the government. And what's happening in Belarus is marked by a couple of different things. First of all, it's very interesting, the intergenerational aspect. You've got young people out on the street, but supported by older generations, and the use of new technology to engage in this. So the point I was going to ask is, what were the main challenges that you have when trying to have a dialogue between citizens and local government? But I think the situation in Belarus is very clear. What would you like to share with us? Because you're right in the middle of all these things happening. How is technology creating opportunities for new youth activism and then bridging the generational gaps?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Indeed, we now in Belarus in the situation of crisis, and it's a crisis that's already long for 25 years, and we have this finishing part for extensive crisis for upcoming last 2 months. One of the things that what we experience here in Belarus, that the horizontal movements or voluntary movements, because they're super active and popular, and technology, of course, playing the great role, because we do have self-organized groups on the local level, on the level of housing when people living in one block, and of course, most of the active people, it's a young people who is willing to live in a new Belarus and new changes. One of the things, this is we still have certain resistance between authoritarian regime of current government, who is playing in the old-fashioned way, and at the same time they're using old-fashioned way of repression. So we can say that the students and young people under the top of repressions, because they one of the active part of the protests in Belarus. At the same time, it's important to say that, for instance, if we do use technology like Telegram channels or Viber channels or any platform for communication, the one of the threat that not foreseen by young people, it's a digital security, because actually the government using this opportunity to communicate and to be in one place to surveil oppressed and repressed further young people. At the same time, the government playing different roles. So they quite techy in the sense that they have resources, financial resources. So the topic of media literacy is on agenda, because the government trying to manipulate with wider society minds. So they're trying to pretend, for instance, currently it's to pretend that we have a dialogue, but dialogue initiated by government control activists. And meanwhile, we can say that the technology is a solution, because like you can't hide the problem that happened, because every single person in Belarus become a citizen journalism, recording everything that was happening on street and sharing it. But at the same time, the government using the old-fashioned repression tools to oppress. I mean, you do recording of videos of violation, and then you trialed with no free and fair trial, and you put in a prison. And this is kind of generation clash, because most of the government thinking in old-fashioned way, and young people want to live in a new Belarus. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me come back to Wietse now to say, you know, you've spoken about 200 cities in Europe and beyond. From your point of view, I mean, Belarus is clearly a very extreme case of how the government is trying to manipulate it. But you've talked about creating tools to co-create dialogue. What do you see are the key challenges of trying to open these conversations using digital tools?
Mm-hmm. Indeed, it's important I think, to stress that everywhere is a bit of a different context, but what we've seen is that one of the main challenges for us working mainly in countries like Belgium, Netherlands, France, UK, United States, is that it's fairly easy these days to actually launch engagement projects. I think almost everyone, or at least 95% of the policymakers, would agree that citizen participation is a priority. That's been different. 5 years ago, that was definitely different. If you would have asked the question back then, when we started, we had to explain why you should actually involve citizens. That's not really a question anymore. Everybody seems to agree on that point. the real challenge here is the next question, which is how do we go from pilot to institutionalization of citizen participation, so that it's not just like a one-off project within something that you're working on, but that you're actually recurringly and continuously engaging your citizens, that you change the way that you make decisions. That's the true challenge, and that requires a change of culture. And that's not only about what citizens want and what they do, it's also a question of the administrations, of it's a different way of working. And we need to, for that reason, we need a lot of capacity building, a lot of exchange of best practices, just as we're doing here. That is really key to change that culture and to make shift to that new paradigm of more transparency and more collaboration between policymakers and citizens, I believe.
Thank you. I mean, you've talked about something that Katarzyna also said, which is, it shouldn't be tokenistic. You shouldn't just have a little dialogue and then let that finish, but it should be an integral part of the way that policy is developed and policies are implemented. And young people should have a say in that, not just have one young person at the end of the table when a conversation is held. That needs to be fully integrated as part of your whole process. Let me just pass back to Mikalai for the last word in this section. What are your hopes looking forward for a new Belarus and a new form of government? How do you hope that the citizens who've been so awakened now will have a more formal role in decision making?
Actually, I can admit that the role of the civil society will be great in this transformation period, because I do represent the Nation Platform of Eastern Partnership Society Forum. It's the platform for civil society organizations. And the story is we do have different expertise that we will need in transformation period. And my hopes is rely on that the society, the wide society is awakened. And it will be a moment when the transformation period will be launched. And then it's important role of those who is now engaged in the different ways of activeness will as well contribute to the development of the country. But at the same time, technology will be able to use on a full speed, because Belarus is, it was famous, at least before this crisis, as IT country. We had the excellent IT expert, and actually it's bring opportunity for development. I mean, we do have IT potential to create the platforms. We already do different platforms, for instance, that allows government to be more transparent. And at the same time, it's a question of if the government will be transparent, that we can say about the society development. Because one of the challenge for technology development and for young people, that we do have technology in place, but at the same time, one of the challenge is the people who is using or not using technology, and for good course or bad course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as a reminder to everyone who's watching, you can engage with us. You can put messages, contributions, questions in the chat, and we look forward to hearing from you. Let's make this a participatory event. So I'd like to say thank you to Nikolai and to Wietse, and we'll now move on to the next element in our agenda, where we're going to be hearing from Dr. Vladimir Prevalech from Slovenia. Now, in the last 11 months, 90% of the world's workforce saw their work impacted one way or another, but 90% of school environments, of school children around the world, saw their schooling either closed, postponed, or turned online. And this was a huge challenge. So for children today, many of them who are now going through a second lockdown, this has been a big disruption. So let's hear from an experience from Slovenia about how they had to put their education online in a very short period of time. Dr. Prevalech, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. I have to congratulate you by pronunciation of my surname. It's not really easy, to say Prevalech in English, but very good. Thank you very much. Yes, you're right. Slovenia, as you may know, is not really a big country. The population of Slovenia is about 2 million, and the acreage is approximately 20,000 square kilometers, so it's not big. However, municipality of Kočevje is the largest municipality from the acreage-wise, so it covers the biggest territory in our country as a municipality. It measures approximately 555 square kilometers. What is more important to know is that the population is not really dense. So people are living in small villages, what is then of course difficult then to organize everything. So the logistics issues are even more transparent as in other cases. And yes, you're right, when we decided to move online, this created a lot of, let's say, problems in quotation mark, because it's not only that we or in any country do not have access to internet, although this is still discussable in some territories, but it's also the hardware that population or people, or in this case, students or pupils are having or not having at home. So the first thing I would like to tackle is, this is the next slide, please, thank you, is connected to the issue of having all the equipment at home. And as you may know, I don't know how it is in your countries, but there, of course, there is still a great difference within the population between those who have something and those who are disadvantaged in position not having. So when we change the technology, or let's say the method of online learning, the question came up, do they have, or do all children have all the equipment necessary to follow this kind of education? And of course, the answer was clearly no. And since we also are hosting or having in our surroundings a large Roma population, the next question was how to help them, you know, how to provide these things. So this is something what municipality did. And this is, we talked of, me personally, I talked to different companies to prepare donations. We also closely worked with our primary school, secondary school, and of course, we opened the budget for these purposes, and we bought all the necessary things that pupils who did not have computers or did not have modems and everything else to be connected, that was provided from our side. So from that perspective, we enabled over 100 pupils to have possibility to follow the online distance learning. But I have to say, when we talk about youngsters, you know, it's not only that they receive something, they can also give a lot. And this was already explained in the first presentations. So what we did in exchange is, because I always say it's not only the kids are, let's say, disadvantaged part of society, it's also elderly part of society. So elderly people who stayed at home, who were not willing or not, let's say, in position to go to the stores, and the contacts, the social contacts, to a certain extent were lost. So what we did, we also we provided some additional equipment also for elderly homes, and we sent this equipment to them. And not only that, we also, let's say, in the summertime, made some, short-term education for them. And this was provided by youngsters because, well, who knows better about computers than the younger people, you know? So this is on the next slide. We also made some seminars for people who are over 65, and they got this, let's say, understanding how to handle the equipment. Nowadays, we keep in touch. So we have some kids who have, like, I know, friends, elderly friends, you know, sending them some notes, talking to them and so on. And I have to say, this was extremely positively taken, because as I said before, young people would like to be useful, and elderly people who were not in position to exchange or to have a context get one. So this is a very positive moment. One thing I have to emphasize is also that we open a new, let's say, line of communication between municipality and younger people, especially in primary and secondary school. And this is that we open a possibility of so-called Children's Municipal Council. And this is the platform that was organized by municipality, where kids can, you know, give us input, what they miss, what should be changed, how should I behave, you know, in this different way. So there is always room for the improvement. And we received a lot of things, but this was not good for me because, you know, this is one way of communication. So you're only receiving some, let's say, ideas or let's say recommendations, but then we upgraded it. And just this week, we had a so-called hackathon. It was the seminar online organized by groups of younger people, and they came up with a very good prepared projects. For example, we need a new swimming pool, and how much will this cost? What will be the price, entering price, and so on. This was everything prepared by youngsters. So I can say this technology, digital technology, can upgrade democracy, in this case, local democracy, to a new level. So it was a great experience for me. And final word I would like to stress is, of course, also from the government point of view. So how to govern is something that has to be upgraded. And as we all know, we are not allowed to assemble in large groups. So you have here a picture. The upper picture is the municipal council sitting on the session, separated 2 meters and so on and so on. But in next session, this is on 24th of November, we will have our first online session of municipal council, and we will vote on the budget 2021. So it's really important material that will be decided upon, but we will use new technology. Of course, there was a reluctancy by the members of the municipal council because not everyone feel comfortable using technology, or they don't even know how to do things. So we again upgrade everything to this online seminars and prepare them for this. And I have this, well, I don't have right now the experiences because this will be happening within a few weeks. But I think it's a new level of communicating and a new level of democracy that can be introduced by digital way. So this is my, I would say, 8 minutes. If there is any kind of a question I would like to be addressed right now, because my second life is being a teacher at university in Ljubljana, and I have to begin my lectures within 15 minutes. This will be theory of geopolitics. So before going there, I can be with you for additional 15 minutes. So if anyone like to give me some question, please do so, and I will try to answer as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir, and you were excellent on time. And I loved the way you described a project that started with a practical challenge. How do you get the kids who are being put out of school online, and then it got expanded to intergenerational solidarity, then it got taken into the decision making, and then really at the point of deciding on how budget got spent. I think that was a really wonderful example, and thank you for being with us. If anyone would like to have a question or a comment to Vladimir, you can do so in the chat and we can share it with him. We're on a very tight time frame, so I'm not going to stop for specific questions that you can answer, but any messages that people want to send to Vladimir, we'll make sure they're passed on to you, and any answers we'll share back with the group, because I'm sure people will be interested in your example. I thought it was a really lovely story where you started with a simple issue, how do you deal with children who are out of school, and you enlarged it to society, to inequalities. It was a really lovely example, and thank you for sharing, Vladimir.
No problem, thank you.
And good luck with your next teaching engagement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vladimir. Okay, we're now going to go to the next section, the next block, where we're going to ask whether digital has affected the relationship between the municipalities and their citizens, and if so, how has it done that? And we have two speakers here, Haris Ropkanis, who is the mayor of Marsalaka municipality in Latvia and is a member of the CEMR Committee of Young Local and Regional Representatives, and Salome Gongadze from the National Association of Local Authorities of Georgia, and she's also a member of Lagodeki Municipal Council. And for the two of us, we're going to explore a little bit some of the topics that were brought up before, and Katarzina talked about how young people need to be engaged in a more broader approach, not just tokenistic, and that there is, we heard from Mikalai and Wietse how it can change the relationship, and young people can actually bring their new ideas and engage differently because they don't want the old forms of decision making and engagement. So let me start with you, Haris, to ask you the question, how do you use digitalization to improve services for citizens? Because if you think that the main function of local government is to provide services to citizens, how has digital tools helped you do that, and that fundamental transaction between citizens and their local authorities?
Hey everyone. So first I would like to stress that nowadays digital era we live in gives us a bunch of opportunities. You know, you can only imagine things and they pop up right away in a form of an app, a program, or whatever tool. The biggest challenge I think nowadays is that the difference between how fast digital tools develop and inertia of society and ability of some people to actually use those tools. That Vladimir also mentioned that when we look at youngsters, is no problem to them at all. They can get engaged. They know how to use whatever digital tool we propose. But then we cannot, as a municipality, go only digital because a large proportion of our population just don't have the skill set to use these tools properly. So when engaging digital tools in everyday agenda, we do see that this helps to to involve more youngsters and younger generation. But we must sort of appreciate and hold to the thought that there is a part of the population that for one or another reason cannot follow up so fast, whether the lack of technology, lack of skills, or also in the border area we are at now, it may be just a lack of connection. So so we have to keep that in mind.
Thank you. And again, very useful that you mentioned that there's a core infrastructure that's needed before you can provide online tools and online services. And in some parts of Europe and beyond, the infrastructure in rural areas is just not there to allow people to do that. And so this is a big challenge for inequalities. Let me now turn to Salome. What can you tell me about getting the right balance between providing services online, which is efficient, it's fast, you can do amazing new things, and the fact that we also need to provide offline services for people, particularly those who can't or don't want to or won't use digital services? How do we get that balance right? Salome.
Dear participants, dear colleagues, good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank to the National Association of Local Authorities of Georgia and the CEMR for this event and opportunity to participate in it. I hope the pandemic will end worldwide soon and we will return to the usual rhythm of life. It's a great honor for me as a member of Łagodechy Municipality Council to talk about my own experience and the involvement of young people in municipal life. It was the newcomers and their support that motivated me when, in the fall of 2017, I decided to leave my 9 years of banking experience and return to my own municipality to help and set an example for young people who have moved to Łagodechy, a small-sized municipality with more than 5,000 inhabitants. As the chairman of the Commission for Social, Cultural, Education and Youth Affairs, and as an ordinary citizen of Łagodechy, I try to have a close connection with young people and constantly listen to their needs. The principle of inclusivity is very important in all aspects of local government activities. There are many different mechanisms to promote participation and involvement of citizens via legislative framework or via civic engagement. The effectiveness of the activities of self-government depends a lot on the work of these mechanisms. For sure, an engaged youth is an important part of the democratic and socio-economic development of any country on local and national level. They are the catalyst for change and the main players in this process. Therefore, it is important to support and encourage them on all local, national, and international level. Once I was elected, one of the most important challenges I faced of our municipality was lack of youth involvement and participation in political life for the following reasons. Their interests and values were not taken into account, while planning local policy, therefore municipality budget was not inclusive. face this, young people in small-sized municipalities like Lagodeki face social and economic problems and have not a full access to the new technologies. One of the main challenges for small-sized municipalities is to keep youth in municipalities and to avoid the movement of populations from the countryside to big cities. Taking into account all these challenges, in 2017, with the involvement of NGOs, we developed a youth policy document aimed at long-term cooperation with the municipal sector and youth. In 2018, in Lagodeki municipality, on my initiative, a gender equality council was established to review the problems facing young people and discuss effective mechanisms for solving them. We modified municipality social program and decided a funding component for excellent students, which is very important for their encouragement. Since the big majority of citizens are active users of social media in Georgia, especially Facebook, was created different discussion groups via social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. It helped us to increase the involvement of citizens, including youth initiatives. This new approach had a positive impact and led to the implementation of the council working plan and different initiatives. Our approach is not to offer to them a ready-made receipt. We enable them to plan, to implement and analyze also results. We advocate for democratic principles and values in citizens, and I think we constantly feel how valuable and important it is their involvement for the development of our municipality. I would like to share with you several initiatives. In 2017, within the framework of the EU project, the local development group named LAG was established. One of the priorities was the promotion of youth initiatives. It is a platform where three sectors actively cooperate: government, civil society, and business sectors. Within the groups, a website such as visitlagodeki.com was created, the main purpose of which is to local tourism. In Lagodeki, I'm very proud to say that in 2018, my municipality won the NALAG prize for implementing the best gender policy. This year, we had a new initiatives calling Your Idea to Mayor. We young citizens could submit the initiatives to the municipality. The topic was social inclusion, and the best idea was financed by the mayor. As regards the employment of young people, we organized numerous trainings for young people on topics such as project management, key development, and etc. In 2017-2020, we announced several...
Salome,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just we're running out of time here, and we can make sure that we can send a link if you'd like to share several more initiatives. That would be great. But if I could ask you to just finish your intervention now.
Yes, very shortly. As a local elected, I always try to share my experience and help them to deal with their problems. And in the coming years, we are planning a lot of important joint projects that will contribute to the development of our municipality and increase awareness. Of course, this is only a small thing that we have been able to do for them over the years, and our municipality is facing many more challenges, which we will soon solve step by step, and jointly we are very much looking forward to cooperate with our European partners. Thank you for your attention. Stay strong and healthy.
Lovely. Thank you, Salome. And I promise that we will, if you've got links to your specific initiatives that you'd like to share, we can put them in the chat so everyone can see them. Thank you. Let me come back to Haris with just one question, which is, with you talked about the fact that it's actually quite easy to launch new tools. Has digitization opened your city up to working with new partners, new relationships, new alliances? Has this made the operations of local government transparent and more accessible?
Well, regarding transparency, I think it's not an issue of technology or not. It's an issue of your political will. Because, for example, when COVID-19 started, there was a territorial reform in Latvia sort of pushed through, and the digitalization actually was made as an excuse not to make discussions publicly available enough. So there are two ends to this mean. But regarding partnerships, we have sort of individual partnerships in Europe, in Germany in particular, and for the when WhatsApp was invented, it was the first tool we started to use, and digital era has allowed us to speed up things, as everything in our everyday life. Also in these partnerships, the planning process became faster, implementation of projects and ideas became faster, clearer, and so on. Definitely, as in everyday life, in everyday issues, also in cross-border partnerships, digitalization has helped us a lot.
Thank you very much. And thank you to both Salome and Harris for this exchange. I'm now going to move to a second exchange where we're going to look at this issue about how e-governance has supported efficiency and effectiveness of public service provision. And I'm delighted to introduce Irina Yarmolenko, this for a city council member from Zhytomyr, from the Association of Ukrainian Cities and a member of a CEMR standing committee on equality, and Eduard Rivas Mateo from the Spanish Federation of Municipalities and Provinces, and he's also a spokesperson for CEMR on civic engagements, citizen participation, and Mayor of Esparreguera. I hope I pronounced that correctly, in Barcelona. So Irina and Eduardo, let's explore together what this means, because Harris just said that actually digital tools can make things faster, more transparent, more efficient if they're applied well. But let me ask you this, and Irina, let's start with you. Do you think digital tools can help create a more balanced relationship between men and women and other excluded groups and the decision makers?
Good afternoon for all. Thank you for having me here. Also, thank you for invitation for CEMR and also our Association of Ukrainian Cities. I have prepared a small presentation about digital instruments and smart cities, Zhytomyr as my native city. I will show a bit, and also I am a city council member who works efficiently and very much with gender issue as the head of a deputy group, Equal Opportunities. It is a honor that this question you sent to me about equality, and yes, I can totally sure that e-government helps to make our easier, and for men, for women, and for other different marginalized group, because it's more easier to use different appeals. It is more easy to use online services and create different certificates as you wish, or register your private entrepreneurs, or for example register your land or your new apartments. And a lot of women they don't want to go to very often bureaucracy city councils and wait these queues with their children, but thanks to digital tools they can create every document very fast and feel safe, especially in this very difficult time. But let's back to my presentation very shortly. I will share a screen if you allow me, and show how this our smart city can help to women, to different social groups, to people who are on difficult situations during their life. So can you see this? We have this administrative services center. Can you see my presentation? Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, we see it.
Yeah, great. We see this administrative services centers. It's the only place which provide the most popular administrative services in comfortable environment. Each big city has this administrative services center, and network of this is constantly increasing. Then we see this electronic queue in kindergarten. So it's very comfortable to get place in kindergarten. You just need to register on site, choose a preschool institution and indicate the name of the child, and then you will get the status and go to this and get this opportunity. Also, it is help with reduction of corruption and make more transparent process because we have no enough infrastructure. Electronic tickets in public transport and smart stops. So you can see that all of you know that it's very comfortable for everyone pay without cash, but it's also an opportunity for management, for planning other new roads and deep analysis for city council members. And you know that we talk about about young people. So I think a lot of these instruments they have prepared with the young people who get who try to find new creative and easy ways to make public services more interesting, more open, and more effective. Then you see these modern stops with the estimated time of arrival of transport. For every mom, for every woman, it's very helpful. And also, look, separate trash cans and free internet. It also involves and encourage young people to stay here. And also, it's very safe because these stops have cameras. Except these stops, we have a lot of camera all over our city, and hopefully soon we will have security buttons. So of course, this is again, these digital tools helps for different social groups, for people who can be robbed, or who, for example, who needs some support from others. I like NGO initiatives because they helps also for us, for inactive young people, and also for other check the map of repairing. For example, it can you have heard about repairing your house, your apartments, but still it isn't done, and you can check why, and also write appeal that it should be done. I can share more, but I mean that main idea that that digital tools really very important for our life. It's a big role for youth because they can get new position, and also through digital elements they can encourage others, young people, to make this process more clear, more interesting, and creative.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Irina. And we will, of course, share your PowerPoint and any links or anything else from other speakers to the audience. So nothing is lost. Thank you. Let me turn to Edouard. And let me ask you a question. We've spoken very much about how empowering digital tools can be and how useful they are to engage broadly. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the dark side, which is that sometimes young people and young policymakers, when they go out to speak to the public on social media, they get faced with harassment, with threats of violence, with trolling, particularly young women. And young women from an ethnic background receive the worst hate mail of any group on the internet. So what, in your experience, can be done to make it safe for young people, and particularly young policymakers who want to reach out, to do so without facing negative consequences?
Hello, everybody, and first of all, thanks for inviting me to be here, and thanks also for the organization. I think that the point that you're asking is really, really important, because, as you said, it's the dark side of the positive things about the digital tools of technology, because there's a lot of advantages that we are going through this last year. Does anyone imagine in these dark times that we are also facing with COVID-19, not leaving this with the opportunities that digital tools give us. So we are seeing now this importance. However, there's also this dark side, which I would say it's especially important on social media. So I think that there's two kind of approach here. I would say that first, we need some measures at a government level. We need governments to take actions into these big enterprises, Twitter, Facebook, to force them to control not only the fake news, but also all the trolls and people with avatars, alter ego, that they are trying to focus only in saying the opposite of your message. I myself, it's my second term as mayor. I arrived at office at 2015. And when I arrived, I saw the importance of have a say in the social media, especially for young people, because you know there's a great distance between the municipality as an institution and then policy at a level for people and especially for young people. So I thought if I myself have a say on social media, I can make an approach. I can be a link between the government, local government, and young people, and I think it worked well. Well, I got re-elected, so I thought I think it's fine. But as the time goes on, I found every time harder. It's harder. I found it more difficult to have a say in a positive way, not in an agenda, in a political agenda, but in a positive context. I mean, because for everything you found a troll that says the opposite that you say. There's this fake news. There's also personal harassment. I found myself even harassment as my family members. For example, last week I found myself following Twitter with my wife and my children. So I had to denounce to Twitter the account, and they removed the picture of my children. So that's something that we should not have to worry about, especially in a local level. My municipality has 22,000 inhabitants, so it's a small town. We know each other, so there's no necessary to go this way. It's not only a digital tool because it's always existed before, and in a non 2.0 level, I mean, in a digital tool, but we have to be extra careful. So, as I was saying, I think that governments should tackle this with some measures for big companies. If that's not enough, and I think that that isn't, we should also protect these things on a legislative way. So I think that parliamentaries should say something, make regulations, and I don't know really how to tackle, because I think that this is the great debate, but parliamentary issue is also very important. I think that last week the European Union is also empowering some kind of actions on this issue. At least in Spain, it's been created an agency from the Spanish government relating to counterpower the fake media, fake news, fake announcements, and more. But I think that we have to tackle especially trolls, alter egos, and all of that. And finally, just to say, there's also a correlation between trolling and all these issues with money, because there are sometimes that people, very rich people, that they have the power, the economic power, they pay others to have this kind of robots, avatar, and trolls, and have a say on social media. I hope that this is not encouraging for even for this dark side to make politics and policies, because it's really a great pleasure to be an elected member at a local level or wherever and transform your society. So I think that's something that it's really great to be a part of and be part of the change.
Thank you, Edouard. And a reminder to everyone, please feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat to see how we can move this conversation forward. Just to sort of summarize, so far we've talked about the power of digital to allow municipalities, once they've made the political choice to do so, to be more transparent, to engage wider with a broader set of population, to be more efficient and faster and responsive to citizens, if that's what we want. We've heard that the opportunities that it offers to bring different parts of the community together, the generations together, and to offer access. But we also heard from Edward some of the challenges, that there are interests. They might be private interests, rich, powerful people. It might be rich, powerful countries. And I don't need to name any names here, but I think there are countries that all state interests that try to encourage fighting and trolling and undermining democracy. So it's really, it's not just a play area for people with good intentions. There are a lot of other interests, cyber criminals online, you've got scams and others. So if you as policymakers, if you are encouraging different generations, particularly older generations, to use public services online and engage with you, there's also a responsibility there for the well-being of the people you bring into that sphere, whether it's older people who might fall victim to a financial scam, or younger people who might find their personal life affected by it. So there is, I think, an interesting conversation here for local officials about how these tools offer you great potential for engaging with citizens differently, delivering services differently, but then also be aware that it's an area that Edouard says is not regulated at local level. It's not even regulated at national level or European level. It's often a global issue. And so some of the challenges and the problems that you deal with are way beyond the area that you can manage and deal with yourself. So I'd like to say thank you to Edouard and Irina. And at this point, I'd like to open the floor for your comments, your questions, your suggestions. We were due to finish at 2:30, but because we started late, we will carry on for another 15 minutes, if that's okay with your time. And I'd like to use that time to discuss with you what recommendations we could come forward with that would allow us to have a further conversation about this, because the power of digital tools to transform and to change the relationship between citizens and municipalities is clear. The potential, we've heard that there are some challenges that need to be addressed, basic infrastructure. We heard the example from Slovenia that they needed to get IT and equipment and laptops in the hands of families so that their kids could get schooling, but that became a mechanism to engage elsewhere. In rural areas, they may not have the infrastructure to connect. So there are lots of challenges. People may not have the media literacy to use the tools. And so there's many different areas. And when I say people may not have the media literacy, that may include the civil servants or some of the other members of the council who are perhaps not so young and not digital natives. They may need to be convinced that it's worth putting things online and opening yourself up, because if you put your city services online, people are going to start sending you complaints. You have to have a service that works 24 hours a day to deal with citizen inquiries and complaints. So maybe the reluctance to go online is partly a desire not to have to deal with the amount of effort it requires to engage online. So let's see what your comments and your questions are. And I'm starting to see, we've got some comments coming in here. Alexandra is saying we have to look at the implications of digitization, because it's another EU priority within the development policy cycle. And good example from Latvia about using digitization as an excuse not to have proper consultations. Yes, this is, and here they said in Moldova, they created an e-governance and services that was significantly underutilized because it was costly for the population to engage. And Alexandra wanted to hear from other countries in the region. So Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, is this an experience? Because putting a focus on digitization can often mean that public money goes to private companies to build the infrastructure, but that isn't the sole issue you need to deal with. And here, Harris has put in a comment that the crisis has demanded us to be more digital. And we recognize that as we go, there will be new challenges, and we'll just have to fix them as they come up along the way. Who would like to say something? Would anyone like to speak at this point?
I think, Tamsin, we have Alexandru who would like to speak.
Alexandru, would you like to go ahead, unmute yourself and put your camera on so we can see you?
Thank you very much, first of all, for reading my comment. Just very briefly, because indeed I'm thinking all the time how we can benefit from the priority, European Union priority in digitalization. And there are many considerations, many ideas, but that's what I wrote about the public sector, which seems to have a lot of e-governance, e-public services created, but they are underutilized because of what you've read, but also because they are quite complicated to use, frankly speaking. I tried to use them on several occasions. Another point, private sector, huge resources are needed. No money, certainly for this scale or at any international partner, at all of them, but private sector is doing quite well. So my question actually to our colleagues in maybe Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, maybe Latvia also, how do they see how we can use, how can we benefit from this priority, European Union priority in digitalization? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good point. Would anyone like to respond on that? He's asked for experience from the East on how the EU's priority on digital could be used in a positive way in your areas. Does anyone have experience to share? I can't see any hands up who want to answer that, but maybe we'll get a message in the chat, and we can always, it's hard to think of an answer immediately, especially if it's not your first language. I appreciate that. So Alexandru, if we receive after this some responses, we'll make sure they come to you. If not, then let me invite you to, we've suggested 2 potential recommendations from this group that we'd like to discuss with you to go forward. So let's show on screen the first recommendation. And this is based on the messages that have come through consistently in our conversation, that young people are agents of change. Young people are users of services, they're voters, they're parents, they're workers, and they're people with ideas. So you can't build a society that looks forward to meet future challenges without engaging young people, and to do it in a meaningful way. And so this recommendation calls on governments to recognize young people in this way, and to give them the opportunity to not just be a tick box exercise, but actually involve in effective policies. And on this recommendation, does anyone want to say anything? For example, share a concrete idea of what this might look like. So again, please feel free to share in the chat or put your hand up so that we know who would like to speak on this recommendation about how politicians could recognize young people as agents of change and active partners. Katarzina, I think I saw your mic come off. You wanted to say something. Please come back in.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for putting up this recommendation as well. Yeah, so I fully agree with this recommendation, and from the concrete examples, I think that consultations in the perspective of multi-generational ones, as well as intersectional ones. So as I said in my speech, young people not only as young people, but as a group of young migrants, young women, young indigenous people. So making sure that local authorities, as well as other levels of governance, as mentioned in this recommendation, are actually looking at the young people as a complementary group. So we have to make sure as local authorities to reach out to young people, so organize as wide, as broad consultations processes and conversations as possible, but also as young people, we have to make sure that local authorities, as well as other levels of governance, are held accountable. So if nobody's reaching out to us, maybe it should be us reaching out to people who are in power. So actually calling our local authorities, calling our MPs, and saying, okay, I'm a young person, I'm an expert in this field from the perspective of young people. Maybe you would like to hear my voice and take my voice into consideration. And I think that concrete examples, that's just how it should be, not only on local levels, but also on international ones.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to say something about about this recommendation, because I've seen in the chat that Edouard has said that the only positive thing about COVID-19 is that it has given a momentum behind the provision of digital services to make that a real opportunity to engage differently with the population. And I agree. I am interested though in how you feel the issue of trust has been affected by this, because in Belgium and in the UK and many other countries, governments have had to reach out to the population to tell them how to behave through COVID. And what we're seeing is that the population doesn't trust them anymore, doesn't want to be told what to do. And the challenges around COVID is, on the one hand, governments have tried to explain the science behind the restrictions. On the other hand, you're getting a strong pushback from citizens saying, we don't trust you. We don't think this is really a case. And I wonder if you feel that COVID, Edouard, you said it was an opportunity to rethink public governance and public services, but on the other hand, it's raising mistrust between citizens and their policymakers. Does anyone have a comment on that they might like to share?
Can I say something?
Yes, please, of course.
I totally agree with you, and I would say that this is happens especially at a national or European level. But however, this is not the case at a local level, because we are the first administration. We are on the street with our neighbors. We are also part of the neighborhood, so people speak to us and explain us their problems, their feelings, and everything. So I think that they see local governments as people who can help them with all these difficult times with COVID-19. If I think in March in Spain, with the first lockdown that we had at that time, we have a debate here in the municipality about how we can communicate to people all the restrictions and measures that the national level or regional level decided, and that we have to make at the local level. So we have, I don't know how you say it in English, we have a classical announce in paper that you put on the streets saying how things should be done. But this is a very ancient way. So we make a message through email, WhatsApp, social media. And at that time, I think that this message gave people confidence through these difficult times. So I think there's really a great division of perception from the first lockdown and from now, because now I think that people they are really tired. We've seen this second wave which is coming. Maybe we will have to face a third wave in the beginning of 2021 in February or so. So I think that as time goes on and as a vaccine or a medication doesn't arrive, people will be more angry and will have more, as you said, less confidence about measures, because we don't like to be told what we have to do. So it's also true. And I think that we have a duty here as a local level to make things softer in an emotional way. I mean, to make the measures, to implement the necessary measures, but also to understand people. If we look today in Barcelona, we have such a great debate here in Catalonia, because we have all the restaurants and bars all closed from 2 weeks ago. These people, they are really facing challenges because they don't have any income and any work. However, if you go to Madrid or any other places in Spain, these places are open, and more or less the pandemic situation is the same. So we have to try very hard to express to people why some measures work in one place, not on the other. And I think that this mistreatment can be brought from here. So it's really difficult. I would agree with you.
Thank you. And I'm aware that we've opened a really interesting topic of conversation there, the relationship between national government and local government, and how actually local engagement can build trust when there is mistrust of what's happening at national level. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. We went a little bit over time, and I know that it's been a really good input. And I see that we've had, yes, an input from Mikalai that open data doesn't lie. And I think this is a really important message, that we, once the data is out in public, we can see the different approaches taken by different governments, we can hold them to account, and we can see the extent to which our governments are performing on behalf of citizens or not. So overall, digital tools provide tremendous opportunities for looking at accountability and responsiveness of the local or national governments to their citizens. I would like to say we had a second recommendation that I'm just going to show you on the screen, which was recognizing that digitalization can be an effective means of involving young people and other traditionally excluded groups, and to foster more constructive state-society relations. So these were two recommendations that we wanted to put forward as a potential output from this meeting. I recognize we can't capture the full richness of everything that we were saying. And I just, again, want to thank an input where Adam has said, yes, imagine if you were living in a country in Central and Eastern Europe where there was already low trust in governments, and the pandemic has made it even harder and revealed that the citizens the extent to which their governments are failing them. So yes, digital as a focus point of the relationship between cities and their municipalities and the citizens, an opportunity to compare quality of engagement and openness. So digital tools offer us a lot, but we also talked about some of the challenges and the dark side. This is a conversation that I think will need to continue, and I'm sure CMR will want to take this conversation forward. Could I say a very warm thank you to all of our speakers who have given us such great engagement, and our translators who stayed with us when we went a little bit over time and have ensured that everyone is able to listen in a language that is useful to them and can feel engaged. This event is nothing without our translators, so thank you to that. And the CMR team behind the scene who worked so hard. Some of them you've seen on screen, some of them you haven't, but preparing an event like this took a lot of effort, so a warm thank you to all. And I have on my agenda that we're going to take a family photo. Now, I know how to do that in the real life. I don't know how we're going to do this on Zoom because we've got so many people that we can't put you all on one screen. So somebody from the CMR team, tell me how we're going to do a family photo. How do we do that?
Tamsin, we're just going to do a screenshot. So basically, I will ask everybody just like to look at their camera, to have a big smile, and then one of my colleagues will do a screenshot. Shin, can you? She's getting ready, huh?
Okay,
Yes.
get ready. So we'll need everyone's cameras on. If you've got your camera off, now is the moment to put it back on, so that we will have a very full screen of smiling faces. And we have so many people, I think we're going to have 3 screenshots. So yes, I'm waiting for last few cameras to come on. Thank you, Inez and Felix.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Another one.
Great, thank you.
Tamsin?
Yes.
Can I just say a word as well? So I would like to thank you for moderating this session. So you've done an amazing job. So nothing would have been like possible without you moderating as well, like the session. So a big thank you to you. A big thank you to, again, like the interpreters and to all the speakers as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. And have we finished with the photo? Is there anything else we need to do? It's all done. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you and goodbye.